Hi friends, the posture we're going to break down now is Warrior One. I think Warrior One is one of the more complex and challenging postures. So let's just dive in. Let's do this bad boy. All right, so Warrior Two and Warrior One tend to be the most common warriors. There are three. So Warrior Two is the one where you have your wide stance. I hope you watched that video already. Your wide stance, bend in the front leg, shoulders and hips are open towards the side of your mat. Now, the big difference between that posture and Warrior One is in Warrior One, which I'll show you now, your hip bones are pointed directly forward to the top of your mat or whatever you're using in your mat. And your legs look something like this. That's the number one difference, okay? Start, as always, from the ground up. So with your feet, your front foot is just like your Warrior Two foot. It is pointed directly forward, long edges, parallel to the long edges of your mat. Your back foot is behind you, and how far behind you it goes is going to depend on your body. And it can even be different side to side. Your back foot will be behind you at some distance, let's say 2.5 feet for now as a starting point. Your toes point at a 45-degree angle, basically to the top left corner of your mat if you have a mat, or 45 degrees if you remember some basic math. That's your angle of your foot. Your front leg will bend, and as always, avoid bending past your ankle and keep your front knee pushed over your baby toe. I talk a lot about this in the Warrior Two video. So again, your hip points are pointed forward. Press into your back foot, so you don't want to forget that we have two legs. And reach your arms up overhead. This is your general Warrior Two stance. Now, a lot of misalignment comes from the following. I think a lot of it is really this belief that people need to have this like crazy wide stance, which makes it, if you put your hands on your hip bones, almost impossible to get both of your hip bones forward, as you can see here. It's not going to happen for me. So for me to get my hip bones forward, I have to shorten my stance. I have to get that foot up. Now, why do we want our hip bones forward? Because this posture opens up our hips, the front line of our hips, and up into our psoas. That's what we're trying to work here. Number one important thing. It's also a very grounding pose. So if your foot is way back here and you're trying to push your hip forward, you may notice the back edge of my foot peels up off the ground, and now I'm not grounded, and it's like super wobbly and weird, okay? The other thing that happens a lot is that, I'll try to do the stance from the front so you can see, is that people want their heels aligned with each other. I think some instructors teach this way. For me, I find it really wobbly because my base isn't lined, right? And then I'm like wobbling and my hip isn't really stretching and it's like not really working for me. So in addition to lengthening the distance between your front and back foot, you are absolutely permitted to widen your stance. So you can step your front foot out and bend in. And for some of us, that really increases the sensation in the front line of our thigh and our hip, and it feels really nice and juicy. Now remember I said your sides can be different. Hips are super funky. So for me on one side, I need a wider stance than the other, or I need a shorter or longer stance, depending on the day. That is all good, okay? So let's review bottom half of your body. Front foot is pointed directly forward. Long edges of your feet parallel to the long edges of your mat, or whatever it is you're using as a guide. Back foot is back 2.5, maybe 3 feet, and your toes are at a 45-degree angle. There is a bend in your front leg. It does not have to be 90 degrees. It's more difficult to get to 90 in your Warrior One and have correct hip alignment than it is in your Warrior Two. Okay with it? All right, so feet, leg bend. We're pushing into our back leg because we remember that it exists. Push your front knee over your baby toe. Keep being mindful that your hip points are straight forward. I'm actually going to shorten my stance just a tiny bit. And then, my friends, it is our good old friend, mountain pose. From our tailbone up through our head, can reach our arms overhead. If you haven't yet watched the mountain pose video, do it because it's going to come in handy here. Now, sometimes we have a tendency to like lean our torso back a lot in Warrior One. You'll see I have a compression in my low back now. It doesn't feel really good. So if you need to sort of bring your heart forward to lengthen your tailbone down, that's okay. It's all right. It's fine because we really want to find, yes, the sensation in your thigh. Cool? All right, Warrior One. I'll show you really quickly how to do this on your chair, which I'm still trying to figure out in my body. So if you do not practice the chair, you don't want to try it on, you can stop this video. So chair friends, as I was playing with this in my own body, and knowing that our intention is to really stretch into our hips, I think the best way for us to play with this is similar to what we would do for what I call a crescent moon. So come to sit on your chair and then turn to either side. I'm turning to my left, so turn to your left and find your left sits bone towards the front of your chair and your right sits bone sort of hanging off the side. Now you'll want to put your hand on the back for a little bit of balance. Place your front foot on the ground and then let your right leg come behind you. Tuck your toes under. You're going to have two 90-degree angles here, and if it feels good, you can start to walk your front foot back, and this should bring a very similar sensation into your body that's stretched to the front line here. You could also work on that angle of your back leg, finding at a 45-degree angle. For me, this just doesn't feel good in my ankle. It might for you, that's fine. It's not too bad. Bring it back out 45 degrees. I feel a little bit more on the inside of my thigh, which is pretty good. So either way, out and wide or in and down, and we'll play with that when we move through our chair practices. Cool? All right, friends, Warrior One. Thanks. If you have questions about it, shoot me an email, Allie Houseworth, A-L-L-I, house like it sounds, worth like it sounds, @gmail.com. Thanks.